Welcome back to The Bandit of Ashley Downs by Dave and Netta Jackson. Chapter 4, Betrayal. Back in London, the four bandits stumbled into the Crackerbox Inn shortly after noon. They were tired, cold, and wet, but they had a satchel full of money. "Order whatever you want, boys," grinned Spuds. "It's time to celebrate." "I'd rather you just give me my cut of the loot and let me get out of here," said Shorty behind his cupped hand. Don't worry, you'll get your share, but we can't go passing around money in here," protested Spuds. "Someone would see us and ask questions." "Well, then, how are you going to pay for a celebration without opening that case and showing it off to anyone who's looking?" Jake asked. A sly grin spread over Spud's red face as he pulled Mr. Walk's wallet from his pocket. "I think there's enough in here to pay for all we can eat or drink. So, eat up. It's on me." "What's on you?" Jake scowled. "That's common property. It came from the job. All for one and one for all. You can't claim that money." "Calm down. I was just funning you." Curly had 2 big bowls of mutton and dumplings and a pint of ale. He finished with slices of sharp cheese and an apple. It was a feast, and his stomach was so full when they left the pub he thought he was going to burst. "This is livin'," he said to his comrades. The 3 men had all had too much to drink and were talking loudly and slapping each other on the back with congratulations. "Come on," said Shorty, "let's split the money now." "Yeah, give us our share," Jake demanded. "What? Divide it right up here on the street? Maybe I should just throw it up in the air and let the wind blow away all the bills." They were passing St. James's Park, and Spuds finally agreed to find a secluded place in the park where they could divide the spoils. When they had huddled under some bushes, Spuds first divided the money in half, and then divided one half to give Jake and Shorty each a quarter. "Hey," said Shorty when he saw how the cut was going, "you better divide that 3 ways. You got no cause to keep half of it. We're all in this equal, remember?" "Sure, I remember. That's why I'm cutting it 4 ways. The kid did his part too." "Yeah, so give me my cut," Curly ordered as firmly as he could muster. Wait a minute, challenged Jake. "You never said this kid got a cut. He just came along with you. He's your responsibility." As he talked, Jake got red-faced and finally made a grab for the money. Spuds whipped out his gun and commanded, "Back off, Jake. 4's in this thing, so we each get 1/4. No more. Now, take it or leave it." Watching Spuds out of the corner of his eye, Jake reached out and carefully picked up his share and began stuffing the bills and coins into his pockets. Shorty did the same. "You boys be careful with that, too. Don't go flashing it around. Look out there, Shorty. Some of those bills are falling out of your pocket. If you guys turn up rich, spending money wherever you go, somebody's going to get suspicious. Don't forget, that money came from right here in London, so the police are gonna be asking questions." "Don't you worry about us," snarled Shorty as he and Jake got up and backed away. "Now, how about my share?" said Curly when the 2 men had left. "Here you go," said Spuds, holding out a meager handful of small coins toward the boy. "Don't spend it all at once," he laughed. "Wait a minute," barked Curly, refusing to take it. "That's not my full share. I get a full quarter. You just told them so." of course you do, but you don't have any place to keep it, so I'll keep it for you. Come on and take this. Then whenever you need more, I'll give you some." "No, no. I want my full share now. I can figure how to take care of it. But first, I want my share." "Calm down, kid," said Spuds as he put the money back into the case and closed it up. "You don't need all this money at one time. It's safer if I keep it for you." "I want my money now." "Well, I ain't giving it to you, and that's final. You'd just attract attention with it, and then the police would be on us in no time. Come on, let's get back to the warehouse. I'm tired and need some sleep." Spuds got up and began walking out of the park. Curly went running after him, cursing and yelling, "You thief! Give me my share!" But Spuds walked on, looking straight ahead, as if Curly were of no more concern to him than a mosquito. Out of desperation and anger, Curly grabbed the back of Spud's coat and pulled with all his might. "Give me my money!" Spuds swung around and hit Curly across the head with a vicious backhand swing. It knocked the boy to the ground, but that just made him all the more angry. He jumped to his feet and charged at the man. "Give me my money, or I'll... His mind scrambled for a threat. "Or I'll go tell the church people that you were the bandit." Spud's homely face screwed up into a red knot, and he lunged at Curly, grabbing the boy with his free hand. Then he dropped the case and began beating the youngster. Curly tried to ward off the blows with his upraised arms, but he also looked for the opportunity to break free, grab the satchel of money, and run. "This could be my chance," he thought wildly, but the blows fell harder and harder, until Curly's only hope was to break free and escape. Finally, the blows stopped. "Don't you ever grab me, and don't you ever threaten me again, boy," Spud snarled, still holding Curly's coat with one hand, "or I'll beat you within an inch of your life." Just then Curly managed to twist free. His nose was bleeding and tears were streaming down his face. It was all he could do to get away, and he made no attempt to grab the money as he ran back into the park. He ran and ran until his legs were as wobbly as a wilted plant. Finally, he sank to the ground by a board fence in an alley in an unfamiliar part of town. He sat there, leaning his head against the fence, his breath coming in great gasps. He couldn't help himself. Loud sobs wrenched out from his gut, and he began to cry. Everything had gone wrong. He'd been betrayed, and now there was no place to turn. Curly's head and arms were throbbing from Spud's beating, but the pain inside was worse. His whole life had been one big betrayal, starting with his father. The man who should have loved him had turned on him, beat him, and drank up all the family's food money. He hated his father. "If he'd been a decent man, I wouldn't be living on the street," Curly moaned. Sometime later, a cold rain roused the boy, and Curly got up painfully and began to search for some place to get out of the weather. Behind a big stone wall surrounding the garden of a fancy house, he found a dustbin full of old clothes and other trash. It had a wooden lid, probably intended to keep out the rats, but it gave him extra protection from the rain. Pulling the rags over him, Curly fell into a fitful sleep. He dreamed about his mother. He could see her clearly, and even in his dreams he thought this was unusual. because it had been a long time since he could remember her face. It made him feel warm inside when he awoke, and he tried to keep her image in his mind, but within a few minutes it had slipped away, and all he had left was a vague sense of her warm smile and soft embrace, surrounded by the angry yells of his drunken father. He crawled out of the dustbin to find the morning well spent. He had gone to sleep before dark and slept all night and through the morning. But now he was hungry again. The rain had stopped, and so he went scrounging in the garbage cans behind the wealthy homes, looking for something to eat. He found half a loaf of bread, but ate only the part that wasn't soggy. A few orange peels were the only other edible things he found. When the pale winter sun was as high in the sky as it would get for that time of year, Curly decided to head back to the warehouse. Maybe Spuds is sober now and has come to his senses enough to give me my share of the money. But as he walked through the streets of London toward the warehouse, a plan began to take shape in Curly's mind. If Spuds refused to give him his fair share of the money, he had a pretty good idea where Spuds would have hid it, in the space behind the loose stone in the wall. Curly decided that even if Spuds still refused to give him his share, he would act pleasantly so that he wouldn't raise the man's suspicions. Then he would look for an opportunity to take what was rightfully his. Sooner or later, he figured, Spuds would be out of the warehouse long enough for it to make it safe for him to take the money. Then he would leave town. He began imagining where he would go. I'd have enough money to go wherever I want, he thought. Maybe he'd return to his hometown north of London and search for some of his sisters and brothers. But a cold fear dampened that idea. Spuds would probably search for him there as soon as he realized Curly had left London. He had never made a secret of his past. Maybe I should go to France, or America, or maybe a South Sea island. The thought of all the exotic places he might travel to excited him, and he hurried along the street. When he got to the warehouse, Spuds was busy with a customer and said to Curly, "I see you're back. Get out on to the street and keep a watch for us. Run along now." No mention was made of the beating. It was like it hadn't happened. Curly turned and went to the large front door of the warehouse where he could watch up and down the street while Spuds conducted his business. When the customer had left, he returned and asked Spuds, "How come you're still trying to make these little deals when we got all that money from the holdup? I should think you'd retire in style." He had no sooner said the words than he realized he was lucky to have found Spuds. The old man might have packed up and fled the old warehouse, just like Curly was planning to do. "Why haven't I retired?" said Spuds with a wry grin. "For the same reason I didn't give you your full share of the money. I'm protecting our interests, of course." How do you mean?" "Many people in this city know me, including the police. If they start asking around about anyone who has suddenly started living high off the hog, I wouldn't want my name to come up. You get my drift?" "No." "Look, after a heist like we pulled, the first thing the police watch for is someone flashing a lot of new money. That person becomes a prime suspect. So I want the word to get around that it's business as usual for me. That way, I won't be a suspect." Curly nodded. "That's smart. But now can I have my money? I won't go flashing it around." "Here, I'll give you whatever you need today, but no more. I'm not going to take the risk." Spuds held out his hand with 2 shillings in it. "You gotta understand, kid. People would get suspicious if an urchin like you started flashing 5-pound notes around." "But I wouldn't do that." Spuds didn't flinch. He continued to hold out the money and looked steadily at Curly. Finally, the boy took the coins and looked the other way to hide his frustration. At that moment, he decided he was going to have to take matters into his own hands.